We're live on X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, just about Rockfin. Almost there. I think that covers all the platforms. I guess we can start putting the show back on Instagram again and testing out the new content policies that Zuckerberg told us that they're going to be rolling out. Find out just how far they will take them. Because Instagram, got to tell you, not a fan of the show. Instagram loves the midstream boot. And I'd like to see if that changes. I'd like to test those boundaries. We're now live across all platforms. Let me double check that there. Yeah, there we are. We got it. Here we go. Okay, guys. Zuck's new rules. A chat GPT planned attack. And don't be the media. Okay? Don't be the media. This is the propaganda report. I am Brad Binkley. It's very cold outside. It felt like temperature, I would say, was 11 degrees this morning. 11 degrees. I had to go do a cold plunge just to warm things up. That's how frigid things are in this area. You walk outside, you're immediately in cryo state. It's like Demolition Man, but everybody's just standing in the woods. Very, very cold. And I hope all of you guys who are, some of you probably in much colder places than I am, because I'm in Georgia. I hope you guys stay warm over the course of however long it's really cold. I hope you stay warm when you want to be warm. How about that? Whether it's today or a year from now, I hope you feel the temperature that is most comfortable to you. And that you drive safely on dangerous roads. Because if you're not from Georgia or the South, you might not realize that there's only one thing that makes people drive more retarded than when it rains. And that's after it snows and the roads have completely iced over. And we don't know anything about driving on it. We don't have chains on our cars. We're completely stupid. We're just like, I don't see anything on the road. It's fine. And then people are just swerving and sliding their way down I-85. So that's what I expect is going to be going on tomorrow. Because the snow was only fun for 5 minutes. It's pretty. Yay. Go away. What's up, Tony? Good to see you. All right. So I'm not going to talk about this story really because I'm not informed. I'm not up to date on it. I just don't know enough about it. But if you're in California right now, I don't know what to say. It looks terrifying, and I'm sorry you're experiencing that. I mean, every article or website I pull up, it just looks like they're showing me hell. And I'm glad that I'm not there, and I know I joke and mess around a lot, but I'm truly like, what an awful, awful thing to have to experience. I mean, nobody deserves to be in a situation like that. Like, get it taken care of, you know? Like, I want them to just end it and fix it so people don't have to live in such... I mean, I would be terrified, you know? It's such an awful situation, and I feel for you guys, and I know that's, like, easy for me to say because I can in no way comprehend what it might be like for people who are feeling the effects of that firsthand. I'm sending you good vibes, and man, what a really, really tough, awful situation. Be safe. Just whatever it is, just. And I know you will. I know you will. Be safe. Take care of yourself and your family. And man, that sucks. But you know, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. It's like I'd be pissed. I'm sure you guys are. What's up, Groby? You're in my prayers. Moving on. Because I just, like, every time I look at that story, it's like real and it's happening right now. And it's impacting people's real lives. And I just feel like it's not something, I know there's people, blame being directed a lot with the state of California and how it's run, from what I understand. which obviously is not very good. But like, I just want people to be okay, man. You know, and God bless you all. I hope that this gets taken care of as quickly as possible. Now moving on to the things that I am going to talk about. Before diving in, I do want to give a couple of thank yous to Chris. Thank you, Chris, for your recent donation. I really appreciate that, man. Chris and I, somebody I've known for a long, long time, since high school, and it makes me feel good to know that you're checking in on the show from time to time. I really appreciate that. Tell your dad I said hello, man, and I hope you and your family are doing well. I'm very grateful for your support, man. Thank you again. And I also want to say thank you to D's Laughs for the really generous super chat donation that he gave on Tuesday night with a very kind message that I was not able to read during the show very well because I couldn't see it on my screen, so I want to read it right now. D's Laughs, Derek, said, "Everyone make a real donation to the people's content that you consume. Brad and company are entertaining us without any stuff like all that Fox Sports 1 sexual harassment lawsuit shenanigans." I have to say, that's absolutely correct. Thank you, D's Laughs. Thank you for pointing that out and noticing that, because no one on this show has ever been accused of offering to pay someone they work with $1.5 million for sex. That is something we're very proud of here at the Propaganda Report, and I appreciate it when that doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you very much. Much, much appreciated. Skip Bayless, who, what's up, Groby? Did I say hey to you? I think I did. Skip Bayless, who Deez is talking about, we should remind ourselves, does get the same presumption of innocence that all of us would want in such a situation, even though this is a civil trial and the standards are a bit different, but I still operate on the presumption of innocence until the merits of the case have been reviewed by a court. That is what makes this country great, when that standard is upheld. Not that it is. Sometimes it really isn't at all, but we should aspire for it. And so Skip Bayless gets the presumption of innocence from these allegations that have been made against him, that have been made against a 73-year-old white dude who's accused of offering his hairstylist, a much, much younger woman, who worked on it, who was assigned to cut his hair on the undisputed Fox News sports show, which he worked on. And what's even more disturbing in these claims anyway than the $1.5 million proposition that he made to her was that apparently after every haircut she would give him, he would stand up and he would give her what's described as lingering hugs, in which he would put his body up against hers. Sorry, I'm laughing. Skip Bayless has been on sports television talk for my entire life. And I thought he was creep. I was like a baby and I saw Skip Bayless and I'm like, that guy's a creep. He's always been a creep. I'm just kind of like, this is exactly what I thought he was before I even had thoughts in my head. And now people are getting mad at him for what he just so clearly, and he's very presumption of innocence, I should say. He's just always been a little creepy to me. You know, people say, well, maybe she's just trying to get money out of him by suing him. Well, she could have just slept with him then, right? I don't know. I don't know what's going on at Fox Sports 1. It just feels like everybody's banging everybody, and everybody's trying to act like they're not banging. It's really a pretty I didn't even dive into how wild these allegations and this web of sexual exploits that were going on at Fox Sports 1 until D's Laughs made that comment, and I started reading it, and I was like, man, this is wild. The allegation continuing. This is in the court complaint. The Bayless would give his stylist, the woman he propositioned, lingering hugs, pushing his body up against her and pressing his body up against her breast, holding her for an uncomfortable period of time. And then he would begin kissing her on her cheeks, okay, after every haircut. And maybe he didn't have any tip on him. Maybe he was out of bills. He said, I don't have any ones on me. You know what? Here's what we'll do. In lieu of a tip, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to press my body up against your breast very tightly for 30, 45 minutes. That's your tip. Don't even think about it. Don't even thank me. Don't even thank me. And I'll give you $1.5 million later if you know, man, would I like, maybe it's made up, but some things seem so on brand. Although I should call myself out on that because I know how propaganda works, as you guys do. Propaganda works when you can identify what is plausible and the target that you're trying to convince people who is someone who committed some sort of wrong. You can't just say something completely wild and crazy that isn't plausible. It has to be in the realm of plausibility from the view of the general public and their understanding of this person. So I should give myself a slap on the wrist there for that. Hey, Sam, I just think if you know who this guy is, Skip Bayless, I just can't help but... I hope nothing happened to this poor woman. I mean, she turned down $1.5 million. I mean, Skip Bayless, I would turn it down, okay? I'm not doing any of that men who have sex with men stuff. Ever. Never, okay? But look, I might hesitate before I told him to get the hell out of my house. I'm a little surprised at the lawsuit. What is I wonder what she wants in the lawsuit. I've only got partway through this. If you guys ever, so I used to do this all the time. You learn to do this in law school. And what you find is that court cases, sometimes civil court cases, the actual documents that are filed at the court, the complaints and stuff, are some of the craziest things you'll ever read. Better than any book you'll get out of the library or movie. Some of it is so wild. That doesn't mean it's true just because it's in these complaints, but the things that people claim and accuse people of, and also the things that people are convicted of doing, it's just like, holy smokes. And it can get really addicting to just read through criminal court complaints because of how crazy people are. Like, humans are, we're a very crazy species. I don't blame us. I blame the rapid development of society and technology. Because we weren't designed for this. This was not the model, that they ran the pilot experiments on with humanity. It was the woods and nature and water, not even bows and arrows. No clothes, no shoes, a couple of leaves, no suntan, nothing. That was a much simpler and perfectly fit environment for us. Now we're in this environment where it makes us crazy. It literally makes us crazy, the environment we're in. It also does a lot of amazing things. It can, help people who lose their ability to walk regain. I watched a video the other day. My mom, I've talked on the show a lot. She was not a quadriplegic. Many people thought she was because she had such a rare disease they didn't understand it. She did not have control of her limbs because the communication signals called the Brzezinski cells in your brain that you don't even think it. Like, I want to move my arm. I don't think I want to move my arm and it sends a message or writes a letter to my arm and my arm moves. It just happens instantaneously, right? Those are cells that communicate these messages without us having to think about it. That enables us to control our limbs. The rare disease she had, it killed all of those cells in her brain. So the communication apparatus was gone. The main one, the one that we rely on. And she couldn't control her limbs at first. She did regain. She retrained her brain to learn other ways, which is why it's very inspiring what my mom and dad were able to accomplish. I talk about it because I think that there's people out there who might find themselves or somebody in their family in a situation that seems like there's nothing they can do to overcome it, or they don't know what the next step to take is. I honestly, and this is not what I intended to talk about at all, but I honestly believe, and I think it's on me. I think I need to, because I think I'm the one that needs to do it, because I was there a lot. Of my brothers and sisters, my sister, probably listening, takes care of me enough. So I think that this is like a message I need to get out to the world. There is hope in those situations, and even when the people who you look to as experts and authorities make you think that you are a hopeless situation, all that proves is that those people or those authorities or those doctors is that they have reached the limits of their knowledge, not the limits of all knowledge. And there's always somebody working on the problem. And I feel like I need to get some of what I learned from them and what my dad transcribed throughout this process out to the world, because I think it could be helpful. I think being hopeful is not like something that a lot of people think hope is empty. You know what I mean? It's not physical. It's not tangible. I beg to differ on that. We all see the psyops going on around us. I mean, it's a psyop among psyops. It's a swirl of psyops. Can't even distinguish which psyop is like. It's almost like maybe everything's just true and real, and the psyop is the psyop about the psyop. It's demoralization, and blackpilling, the seeing no way out. That is the way that demoralizers want people to feel. And so the first step of not giving them what they want is piercing through that and seeing the hope that you can pursue. That is the very thing that they're trying to snuff out. It's an act of resistance, hope is. Wow. I just went way deep I went way super deep today, had none of that on the agenda. Head first into the deep end right there. Thank you, Tony. Man, what's up, Denver? Thank you. So I just read Denver's comment. Denver says that he appreciates the comedy and the news he provides. I love that I read that right after I just did like the deepest non-comedic dive I'd done in months. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. You really test out things when you do podcasts and do shows like that. Sometimes you try and restrict yourself to specific formats because you want to see what works and what value you can offer the most. Other times you throw the plan out the window and just kind of go with it, which is not something I would feel the confidence to do, honestly, if I did not have people who listened like you guys and communicated with me and gave me feedback and stuff like that. So I'm very grateful for that. I don't know why I'm in such a sentimental mood today. Maybe it's that cryo state. I think I went outside earlier. I think I was in cryo state for like 15 minutes because of the 11-degree weather. I think maybe that changed me. I'm going to divert back to the plan for the show, which I was talking about Dee's last very nice. I haven't even got through the intro about the people I want to thank yet. How long have we been doing this show? We've been on for 20 minutes. I'm still on the intro. Denver says, nicely done. Everybody needs help to think beyond their subjective. Yeah, I agree with that, Denver. I think we can all get caught up in our own self, and I also think that our own subjective experience can help the subjective experiences and the collective objective experience of others. I honestly don't know. Do you guys believe in objective reality? That's a deep question. It seems to me like an easy answer, just off the cuff. Like, yeah, sure, there's an objective reality. It's just that everybody has all these other factors that since the day they were born has shaped the way that they see this reality, whether it's emotion, whether it's physical, whether it's psychological, mental, all of these things that have effectively prevented every single person on earth from seeing the actual objective reality. So it's almost like we have an objective reality that exists, that there's not a single person on the planet who's ever actually seen it as it is. I don't know. You don't believe in it, Denver? On a functional standpoint, I don't believe in it. Because if there was an objective reality, for it to be in any way functional and beneficial for humanity, you'd have to get everybody on the same page with it. You'd have to somehow figure out how everybody can see it. You'd have to prevent this group from getting very, very offended by it. You'd have to prevent this group from getting way too excited. It's just so many different factors that prevent the collective awareness of what that would even be if it doesn't even exist. Denver says institutions and authorities dictate. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's. I didn't even bring that up, but excellent point. That's what the media and the communications apparatus is. They control the perception of reality that the audiences that buy into their propaganda and their brainwashing, what they put in their heads. It's the, what's it called? It's the, slipped my mind. Agenda setting theory is one of the sociological terms that relates to all of this, that basically says that the news media or whoever controls the predominant communication systems in a country establishes what the people of that country care about the most and think about the most. And it makes perfect sense. They set the frame and the parameters of thought for people who don't seek knowledge and information outside of their little corner. And even seeking info outside of all of, you could listen to every podcast on the planet, seek knowledge from every expert that you can find that'll talk to you, have as wide-ranging of media consumption as possible, which I don't know if that'd be a really good thing. It might be better to obtain that knowledge by cutting it all off and going out into nature, but it's very difficult to, like, somebody setting the agenda. Of course somebody has to set the agenda. I think the recognition that somebody's setting the agenda personally is helpful to know that your thought is being directed in a certain way. And when it comes to the news, and you guys all know this, it's never because they're just trying to tell you what's going on in the world as it is. I mean, what a scam the entire news industry is. Like the way they carry themselves. It is a fictional show that has a bunch of actors who are performing and masquerading as journalists that the target audiences that they were cast for to influence the most can trust and believe, specifically so that they can, I don't even want to say lie to them. Yes, they lie, but they tell the truth also when it serves the propaganda agenda. So the overarching goal is the agenda they want to establish in the minds of their target audience. The perception of reality they want the people who trust them the most to operate in. And whoever they can cast to put in the role of delivering the information, whether true or false, into their heads is journalists. These people aren't journalists. I was going to talk about this later in the show, but I think that the more we can remind ourselves, because I fall into this trap all the time, that the people we see on television, on these nice fancy sets, with their ties on, with their snooty attitude and the dick in their ass. Like these people are so uppity. They think they're so smart, and the very tone that they use to speak to people, which is a psychological technique, the matter-of-factness that is one of the reasons they were hired to do the job they do, because they can do this. It's like they're psychopaths. That very thing is the authority that they possess. The more that we can remind ourselves that these aren't bad journalists, because it's so easy to wave your hands in the air and go, you're so stupid, you're so wrong, you lied about this, you are obviously manipulating about it, you're a terrible manipulative journalist. That still plays into the frame that they want us to think and talk about them through. Call them a terrible, lying journalist all day long. That is what they want. They're not journalists. They're not bad, terrible, awful journalists. They're fantastic performers and propagandists. That's what they are. Almost to a point where you're applauding what they're capable of. Rachel Maddow, who literally plays, she is in television shows. And I say that, I've been in a number of television shows and commercials. But I'm pretty open about that. The problem with these people is they don't differentiate between what is fiction and nonfiction. The stuff they tell us. CNN is a nonfiction news network. It's no different than some of these news-related, what's the one with on Apple TV, Jennifer Aniston's in it. It's no different than these shows, except those shows, like the one on Apple TV, tell the audience that people know it's a fiction show, even though they have the propaganda, indirect propaganda angles, the cultural stuff in there too. People know they're watching fiction. They don't realize that when they're watching CNN or MSNBC or whatever network they're hooked on, that they're also watching fiction. And that the people talking to them are probably better actors than Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, because they have to keep this role up longer. And this network and these people, they never say, oh yeah, show over, next season coming around. This was all, made up for fun. They carry on this idea that they're actually a non-fiction news network. They're a fiction book pretending to be nonfiction for the purpose of, as I think it was Denver that mentioned earlier, shaping the perception of reality of the targeted audience that trusts them the most. No, Tony, I have to say I agree with you. I agree with you on Brian Stelter. I think Stelter is very legitimate. Stelter, I'd have to say, he is one of the top journalists of our time. He's got great tits, too, Stelter. That's my problem with Stelter. It has nothing to do with him lying. It's that he got 2 of the Pfizer shots, and now he's got beautiful tits. I can't listen to anything he says. And you should see him in a 2-piece. The dude wears a 2-piece on the beach with confidence, okay? Dude's like Lizzo out there, like 6 months from now, he's going to be suing Skip Bayless for propositioning him. I guarantee it. D's last, by the way, ended that nice message he sent by saying, keep rocking in the free world. Thanks again, Deez. Which, by the way, Deez was on the show back in October because he had a new album that he released called October Surprise, which is on wavelake.com under Deez Last. And we played some of the clips on the show. And it's a political-themed rap album that'll make you laugh and it'll get your head bobbed. So check them out. Thank you again. Cole Wall said, I made Apple turn off all that crap before the store. What store? What crap? The Brian Stelter in a tube top? Was Apple showing Brian Stelter nude? I don't think I saw that. Denver says more centralized, the greater the capacity for to control the narrative. Yeah, I agree. Therefore, even if 99.5% of the public knows it's bullshit, they will project the narrative unbatted. I agree with that. So I think we have a serious challenge as humanity when it comes to these weapons of mass delusion and brainwashing that we literally are never not being affected by in any given moment. They're everywhere. I saw the CE5, the technology conference is going on, and people have all these posts where it's like the top 10 crazy new technology that you can't live without. I'm like, pretty sure I can live without it. I've lived without it my entire life. I didn't even know any of it existed until you just put this stupid, here's a thread, boo, 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 and it's got all this crazy-ass technology. The only one that I remember specifically in my mind that I was reading through last night, because most of them, I was like, this is stupid. I don't need a iPhone case with an Android typewriter. I don't need that. Why is it? Oh, let's put an Android typewriter on a case and combine it with an iPhone. Okay, what? I don't need that. I can live without that. The one that really disturbed me was some sort of technology that turns your every wall in the room that you're in into a screen. And it showed this person in this room, and just every wall is just shooting out images. And I was just like, this is way too much. Why do you need every wall to be a screen? I mean, is there nowhere you don't want anywhere you look to not have a screen? If you look in your toilet, is there a television show being broadcast out of your toilet? Why do you need a screen on every surface? Your dog barks, MASH comes out. Like, why does everything have to project? Brainwashing. And this is on the top 10 things you can't live without. I don't know who created it, but like, whoever sees that and goes, I gotta have that. I was just thinking the other day, I get up every morning and there's like 3 or 4 minutes, not that, it was like 90 seconds maybe, that I sit down every morning to tie my shoe, and I can't watch shit. For 90 seconds, I don't know what's on TV. I think this thing will help me project Peacock Plus for my shoelaces. Like, who thinks of this shit? Who needs it? Can you imagine? You're going on a date. It's like, you want to come back to my house? Oh, yeah, where do you live? I live over here. You want to watch 18 things? What do you mean? Just at one time. Do you want to watch 18 different shows at one time? No, I don't. I don't want to watch any of that. What's up? I just can't, it was just so it was painful to look at, the screen on every wall thing. I couldn't even watch the video. It was like a 90-second video, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to have a seizure. I don't have epilepsy, but I'm going to develop epilepsy because of the short introductory video about this CE5 technology that apparently I can't live without, that will guarantee that every wall and surface of my house has a screen projecting something into my mind. Your dog's asshole will have a screen projecting MSNBC, CNBC News. You'll get the financial reports from your cat's vagina every time she flips over. It's just like everything's just who wants that? Who wants that? It was exhausting watching the video of it. And it probably got billions of, not billions, that's a little much, I'm not Skip Bayless offering to have a hairstylist. I'll give you $2 billion to let me press up against your breast for 45 minutes. Skip Bayless probably said at some point to somebody. I just can't, what are you working on, man? So what project you working on at MIT? You got all this funding, what is it? Oh, well, I've been developing a house where you can't escape screens. What? Yeah, no, you get in the shower. It doesn't matter what, you don't even get to choose the channel or the volume. Sometimes it just blares the worst shit in the world right into your ear. I would like to know the motivation, because I do not see any advantage to that. People debate about brain chip, you put the chip in your brain, the brain computer interfaces and stuff like that. I can totally get how that's weaponized. I've done shows on how they said, well, this helps people. We'd like to weaponize it with all these military people. But I also understand that it can help people who have lost their ability to walk. I think I was referencing this earlier, but I saw this piece of technology that was almost like this, not Iron Man suit, but it was a like robot type suit that people who can't use their legs, they get in it and it enables them to walk. And for somebody in that kind of situation, I mean, that's a miracle for them. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose the ability to use your arms or legs. And it happens to people all the time. And when something like this comes around, I can understand where people could say, I'm going to give the brain chip. I'd rather it be like an outside brain. I'm going to give it a shot because they would like to use their legs again. That's fine. The TV screens on every wall. Who is this helping? What's up, Forest Mommy? Forest Mommy, have you heard about the screens on every wall, everywhere? Yeah, so that's the thought-controlling drones. That is a little... Imagine the technology we don't know about, You know, they have contact lenses that... they've already been trying to develop these. I've saw them talking about one of these, and I can't remember what it was, but I used to watch all these military... strategy and technological. I would search like brain computer interface and Global War Institute. I would just try and find the most recent panel discussion that the highest ranking military officials were having about the types of technology that they were currently trying to develop and test for operational use, which is not always easy to find. But when you do, it's just like, oh my God. It's like, wow. So you have thought-controlled, you literally have thought-controlled drones you're working. You can control a swarm of drones. Who's controlling the New Jersey drones? So, Chris Christie? Is he controlling those with his thoughts? I don't know. But this is just the stuff they tell us about. I used to be a big believer that they're probably like 50 years ahead of us in what they don't tell us about. I don't know if I don't have any way to prove that, but my basic thinking about it is this. The first person to develop a fully functional invisibility suit. I don't mean the reflecting glasses and stuff like that. I mean somebody who can put on something that makes them completely invisible, that no one can see. That person is telling no one about his or her invention. That is a secret that person will keep until they go to unless they need money, which they can steal because they have a perfect invisibility suit. You don't tell people because you want that advantage is what I'm saying. So they're definitely not going to tell the public about technology that exists that is very what is that? Advantageous to them. That if we knew about it, it would even the playing field. Chris Christie controlling the KFC. Yeah, Chris Christie controls the KFC with his mind. He doesn't even need a brain-computer interface for that. Forrest Mommy says she has almost a blind friend who said that would be cool to see again, but would not have. That's interesting. Yeah, some vision technology. I have a friend who was we called him Blind Tim in college, his vision it's a really nice thing to call somebody whose vision is slowly going away, right? When you're in college, hey, there's Blind Tim. Tim's actually, like, he was one of my, Tim was a really great guy. One of my best friends when I was young. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was always such a great guy. And I used to always ask him because he was always keeping up to date on the research of the degenerative eye disease technology and advancements, which when you or a family member develops some sort of condition like this, that I don't know that his was widely researched at the time. That's the thing. So if you or anybody ever gets a rare disease, you're going to have to like get with somebody who can help you with research, because doctors aren't going to be researching it for you. They're going to be operating based on the limits of their knowledge, and there's a lot of institutes that do help people with the research and the clinical trials for people who have rare and lightly studied diseases. But people who have those things, like my mom again. So at the time she developed her disease, or that it was diagnosed, there was, I think, less than 500 people in the world had it. Very, very rare. Nobody knew anything about it. And so therefore, the prognosis was you're going to die in 2 years, right? But that wasn't based on any knowledge or any actual understanding of it. That was based on the understanding of everything else. They didn't know anything about it, which is why she lived 18 years after that. But since then, there have been developments in it, because it's this type of condition, more and more people, it's been discovered that they have, which has fueled some of the research. And I know that, like, if you tell me Dr. Fauci or something is like in charge of research, I'm going to be a little bit reluctant. My position on all of that has always been, doctors take you as far as you will allow them. You don't have to accept anything they tell you. You can take what you think works for you and reject what you think doesn't, or you are concerned with. And who cares if they get mad? The biggest problem with doctors, I think, that I learned, is that the doctors, you know, it's not to say that there's not personality traits. We all have our own issues, whatever. It's that we grew up learning to trust the doctor. Doctor a day keeps, or not doctor a day. That's like what that girl who's banging 100 doctors in an hour probably is doing. An apple a day keeps a doctor away. A doctor a day is a new OnlyFans video for that weird girl. Being not brave enough, having the confidence to look at a doctor who you've been told to follow their orders your entire life and question them and say, I learned things that make me think that maybe this isn't the right thing. Some doctors will get mad at you, and they will maybe even tell you you're going to die, like I've happened before. Others will say, you can ask me anything. I want this to be we're working together to discover this. Man, I've taken 18 left turns today. But those are the doctors you want to stick with. You want to get rid of the other ones. Like, nobody go, hey, come help me, and just have the doctor yell at you. Research institutes, by the way, also. If you're in a situation or a family member is, and it's possible, it might be advantageous to take your family member yourself to a university that is actively conducting research. Because what I have found that you discover at places like this, as opposed to just regular hospitals or doctors' offices, is that you have people whose minds are far more open and willing to try things, to listen to your concerns, and to work with you. Forrest Mommy says, I have a concierge doctor because he was rude. Oh, you fired one. He was rude to you for advocating your own health. Yeah, it's like crazy to me, you know? With a pause of unconsciousness. Yeah, it is wild. I can't imagine being a doctor who finds himself telling people who ask legitimate questions while providing recently published case studies and findings in medical journals that they cite. They're very office sites for other things. And flipping that thing on the floor and saying, you're wrong, you're going to die. because you're not vaccinated. I just can't. I can't fathom that. It's like I think people were so afraid during all that pandemic stuff of the shaming. It's awful. Like, we could talk about that shit like all night long. It just talk about the psychological studies, sociological, psychological studies that were done during that period of time. They probably learned more about human behavior and how to get compliance and how to identify those who won't comply in that condensed period of 4 years or so than they had learned since the beginning, since BC, since day one BC. Because as you guys know, this past January 6th was the 2025th anniversary of January 6th. All right, I'm retarded. I am very, very retarded. Edmund, stop licking yourself, buddy. Well, I don't care. Just don't do it so loud. All right, now let's get back to so this was going to be like a short show. It turned into a stream of conscious zigzag, but propagandafight.com is the website, by the way. Linktree at Brad Binkley is where all the ways you can help out the show are. And I do appreciate everybody who's helped in any way, financially or sharing it or saying nice things to me or being a guest on the show or inviting me as a guest on the show. I am very grateful for all of it. I truly am. It's like every time, because it's not easy to do this. A lot of you guys have done podcasts, and it's definitely not easy to sustain because we don't have the resources like a Jake Tag. We don't have 15 guys and girls and theys behind the scenes doing everything technical and producing while you can just read a teleprompter and talk like this with a matter-of-fact attitude. People who podcast, they're kind of a jack of all trades in that context, and it can get to be a lot of. It can get to wear on you at times, and it's just like every single time for me that I've started to be like, oh man, I need to like. I need to really think about if I want to keep going with all this. It's like I'll get messages or I'll get these like really kind donations. Like it just blows my mind, and I'm very grateful for that. I really am. Now back to the more organized portion of the show. As Colball says, what'd you say about the invisibility? Human invisibility has been achieved and has been used for at least 2 decades. I wonder what, yeah, definitely going to be doing some more of that. I love doing the man on the street stuff. How much knowledge has been lost, I was thinking about that the other day. People literally don't know what happened last year. They definitely don't know what happened 4 years ago. Complete different perceptions of what the history of our world is within the past 4 years. What's been lost in the past 2,000 years? It's crazy to me. And has it been lost? Who hasn't? Who knows some of that secret shit? Like, I wonder, like, I bet there are so many wild things. Sometimes I get on this mindset where I'm like, oh man, UFOs, even though I've wanted to believe for so long, it's all bullshit. None of it has ever been real. And then I start thinking about stuff like that. And I'm like, man, this is so crazy. All of it's probably been real. Denver says a podcast that he was brought on to present some nano pollution and overlap with particle science and overlap with AI tested on diagnosis. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'll check that out. What do you do for a living, Denver? That's a very specific focus there. Okay, so what I want to talk about, because this is a thing that it comes off as really dumb at first. Forest Mommy, you might like this section, Forest Mommy. But I want to talk about something that happened yesterday that is just an example of what I'm seeing more and more on X that is exactly like what the mainstream media used to be. And the theme of this, for me, is the opposite of, thank you, Zach. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Zach says, always listening, even the stream of conscious stuff. You're right. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Meeting you guys at the Libertarian Party and hanging out with y'all, man. It's been it was one of the my favorite things of last year, and I look forward to doing some more stuff with you guys this year. The theme for this is the opposite of a theme that Elon Musk has been propagating on X, which is, I'm sure you've seen it, which is the "you are the media now" theme. You are the media now. Something that he's been putting out. I heard that that's from 4chan, I was told. I think that got all the way to Musk. But he is pumping that out there a lot, which is like, no, don't call me the media now. Never again say you are the media to me. Who would aspire to be the media? What an awful, awful thing to call somebody. Do not be the media. Never be the media. They're despicable. They are the most detestable institution, the least trusted institution that's ever existed on planet Earth. And you got Elon Musk saying, you are the media. Those are fighting words, Elon Musk. Saying you are the media to people. It's like saying you are Rachel Maddow now. No, you are Brian Stout. You are Joy Reid now. You now are on Epstein's Island. No, dude. Do not be like the media. A better motto is be better than the media. Be much, much better than the media. And the reason I've been thinking about this is because looking around X lately, it certainly looks like a lot of these bigger right-leaning accounts that at least express similar views to probably many of us who we might even like. It certainly appears that many of them are taking Elon's message to heart, that they are the media now, because the way they've been acting, the way they have embraced using the same manipulation tactics on their audiences that the mainstream media became so despised by all of this for relentlessly using on theirs. It's been a little bit glaring to me. I used to look at X because they say X is the best place to find news. No, it's not. X is not the best place to find. Nowhere's the best place to find news. No, go outside, ask the old lady walking across the street, say, hey, report the news of your walk down the street with your dog. That is the most accurate, honest news you're going to get from anybody. I click on X now, and I see all the news. All of it is just like, I literally don't believe the angle of it, because everything has such an obvious bias tint to it. Even if I'm inclined to agree with that position, I'm like, I can't, this is so obviously biased. Sure, I would love if this crazy shit you're saying, it is actually but it never is. And I've noticed the exploitation that seems to me to be on the rise, not by people on the left, not by, the media still does it, but by people who are right-leaning, who have managed to build big accounts in what I have discovered some interesting ways, with the help of some of you, talking to some of you guys have helped me learn that. But it's people who, ironically, one of the ways that they built their big following was by calling out the media for using the very deceptive tactics that they are so very obviously, some of them, using to manipulate their followers right now for engagement, for profit, for whatever else. Sure, there's a million different reasons. Maybe they're just having fun with it. But I'm going to give you an example of a specific media tactic that is one of the favorites of the mainstream media that just played out beautifully for a handful of right-leaning accounts that made a whole bunch of people who are smart, credible people look a little retarded last night. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It made me have this realization of, wow, what I just witnessed was a group of people who, many of them I know a little bit, and I know that they are very honest and would never intentionally manipulate people or lie. They wouldn't lie at all. They had been conned, I think, and they didn't realize it. And they had no idea. And then I started thinking about Rachel Maddow's audience and how we think about Rachel Maddow's audience and how they're very much conned into believing that this thing that is so disconnected from what the truth of something actually is, so glaringly disconnected from it. But they don't realize that. And we look at them and we go, well, they've been conned, but they're not very credible. So I saw like a reverse of what I'm used to looking at with people that, not a lot of people, but people who I know their intention is good. Just the group overall. But I also know that, man, they got made to look a little bit. And look, it happens to everybody. It's happened to literally everybody. None of us have never been bamboozled. But it just made me think about the impact of what some of these psyops and techniques have on people. You know, an outside observer might look at some of these people who I know are trustworthy, who I know 99% of the time are going to give you great information. They might look at them the same way that I look at everybody who watches MSNBC. You know what I mean? Lacking in credibility, which actually isn't the truth. And it's probably not the truth for everybody who watches MSNBC. It's just the way that I perceive it, because I see, and you guys see, the manipulation tactics just going on so hardcore, and we see them in the context of being so far off base, being so far away from what is even close to touching the reality that most people see. And then I saw the same thing going on X, and that is what I'm going to get into. Yeah, right. Forrest Mommy says, did most people hear on the Sean? That's not what I'm referring to, but yeah, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here in a second, Forrest Mommy. So let me make sure I get my thoughts clear on this. So I'm not trying to talk negatively about anybody. I'm just observing things that I myself have been impacted by and fallen for too. And I've really, really grown a little pissed off about what appears to me to be such blatant use of the same mainstream media tactics by right-leaning influencers on X that have built that level of trust, that they seem to be very knowingly and obviously manipulating their large following. I saw it a little bit a while ago. I mean, I have for the past year or so. I've observed it, but it's really, really pissing me off. I'm not don't hate the player, hate the game. So that's kind of how I'm going to approach all of it, which is why I'm talking about it, because that's my job. Is I'm going to try and point out what I recognize is going on in the game, because I think everybody will. I think this is what our ultimate defense is to these. Every wall has a screen on it. Propaganda buildings. They apparently want to put us in from the CE5 technology room. That is our best hope, is to recognize our weakness, and that to protect ourselves, we must question those who we identify with and are inclined to agree with and feel they are vocalizing what we might, the people that we would fight in a war with because we feel so maybe connected to them, like they're our voice. If we're not questioning those people especially if we don't really know them very well, that we are not questioning the individuals who are the most likely ones to be assigned to propagandize us. It ain't the other side. We already don't believe it. We're already critical and skeptical of anything that Rachel Maddow and the other side of it says. It's the ones that we want to be telling us the truth, that it feels so good to be on the side with, because they make us feel like they are us. Those are who we must question the most. Those are the ones who Edward Bernays always talked about are the best propagandists. You send them to communicate with the people they most. It's the Stacey Abrams shit. You know, you find every single 6'5", 325 black woman with a lesbian haircut, and you put Stacey Abrams in a room with her, and they will believe every word she says. What's up, JC? What's up, Jack? Dude, that's exactly right. Yeah, the fake call. So just don't give into your emotions. And that's exactly right. And that's actually where I'm headed to on this, because this was one of the tricks that that was used on X that worked so effectively. I mean, it was really pretty impressive, the way it happened. Let me make sure we find my notes here. Where were we? Okay, so the story I'm talking about, and this, it's not this specific example, because this is like literally the dumbest story I've ever seen. The fact that it became a news story shows how effective the right-leaning X manipulation tactics that were just like what the media uses, shows how effective they were. Because this should have never blown up so big on X that the New York Post and a number of other publications thought it to be news. News is supposed to be things that are out of the ordinary, that let people know about something different that happened, that watch out for this, or here's this. It's things that are common and the same are not supposed to become news. But there's a little trick to that, which was used. And I'm talking about, what is the name of the freaking, hold on. David Muir, that's the guy, the ABC News guy. You guys know what I'm talking about? Did you guys see this? David Muir was reporting live from the fire. He was probably he was not in any danger. Okay? He was very, very far from the fire. But we see this a million times. This is what they do. This is what the news does. And he's reporting live from the fire. And he turned during his reporting to point at something. And when he turned, his jacket, let me pull it up on screen. I'll show you. To the delight of manipulative accounts on X, who do nothing but disingenuously engagement for him, he turned to reveal that the back of his jacket had been tied off with what the New York Post called a wooden clamp. A wooden clamp. What is this thing? That, the way they described the New York Post, the thing that they saw, the thing that tied off David Muir's jacket as a wooden clamp, tells you that the New York Post is projecting the perspective that went viral on X that could not be further from the reality. That makes anybody who has a little bit of an understanding of that industry and what was going on, that makes anybody who knows that think that the people who are projecting this POV are a little retarded. It's so far, you can't even comprehend what this article is trying to say that happened in that video. The headline of this New York Post article says ABC's narcissistic David Muir. I'll take a step back. David Muir is a world-class dickbag. Even his mother couldn't dispute that he's the perfect description of a douchebag. She said, yeah, I popped a douche out. He is the worst, okay? He is paid to manipulate. He's paid to pretend to be a journalist, $5 million a year, to masquerade as a journalist while never actually engaging in journalistic work, specifically because he's very, very good at appearing to be serious and genuine. He's an actor. Like I was talking about earlier. Like I tweeted earlier, that believing that David Muir is a journalist is like believing that Kiefer Sutherland is a counter-terrorism agent for CTU. Neither are either. One of the shows, though, that one of them is on just pretends to be a real show. And Muir probably gets paid a lot more. So he's trash. There are plenty of legitimate things that people could bash David Muir about. But this story here directed an entire army of people on X to focus on something about David Muir that they had, at least the way they expressed it, literally zero understanding of the actual context that he was operating in. And it was glaring. Instead of focusing on the real shit they could have been focusing on, which in turn made David Muir, who is a villain, look like a victim. And it made a bunch of very smart, well-intentioned people look like they were MSNBC committed Rachel Maddow viewers who you can't even comprehend. How do you even believe like this position unless you just accepted what a bigger account that introduced you to this story and set the agenda setting, the frame of that story in your mind and getting to the emotional aspect that Jack was talking about in a second. And in doing so, engaged something that none of us can really resist. Like, it's very hard to resist the urge to dunk on the libs and dunk on the elite, to join our friends online and dunk on these losers is an irresistible thing. It's like it's so powerful that it almost always snuffs out that little voice inside of you that's telling you to ask the questions first that, had you asked, might have revealed that this whole thing isn't actually the slam dunk that you've been led to believe that it is. And that the outcome might make you lose credibility a little bit in some people's eyes. Not a lot. It's like one thing. It happens to everybody. But for a brief moment, made to look like Rachel Maddow loving, brainwashed clogs. And I saw a couple of these posts, and I saw the big accounts that framed it, and I saw that framing that they put out there be repeated over and over and over again. And look, some of you guys might have too. I've worked in television. I've been on dozens and dozens of television and film sets, news-related, film, TV, all of it. So I knew exactly what was going on. It's not complex, but like, because of my experience, I immediately knew that these perspectives that these big accounts were projecting that were instantly adopted by their large followings and spread so widely that it became new. It became out of the ordinary. Holy cow, look at this out of the ordinary thing that we're going to cover in the New York Post. And then the New York Post projecting that same very, I don't want to say stupid, because nobody knows everything about everything. We know things about the context that we have experience in, and we can speculate about things, but things that we don't, it's probably best to seek out information first. But that little urge, yeah, you could go read about that, but let's dunk on these libs. Let's dunk on these stupid assholes. It's a very strong urge. But the problem here in this situation is that people that were dunking on the libs, or David Muir, were blind to the fact that they weren't dunking on him at all. They were dunking on themselves. I'm going to go through this story, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just pissed at other people who are manipulative. I hate it. I hate it. Thank you, Cole. I appreciate that. Yeah, he is, like, David Muir is the he like, I can't say this enough. And the reason I repeat it is because I find myself going, he sucks at journalism. Well, and I'm like, what am I screaming into the void? He doesn't care. David Muir, Jake Tapper, none of them care if you call them a bad journalist, because they're not journalists. Criticize their acting, and they might get a little pissy, because it's just, yeah, all saps. All right. I'm going to really focus here. You guys got me. I'm a little, like, fired up, man. All right. So here's what this article says. And I can't even get past the headline of it without stopping. ABC's narcissist David Muir roasted again for sprucing up Slet look while reporting on deadly LA fires. Just in the headline, it's abundantly clear that whoever wrote this article is either knowingly lying for clicks and whatever, or that they don't know one thing about the context which any of this happened in. Because none of the assumptions present in this headline are true. None of them. None of the assumptions that any of the slam dunking on is based on, or the jokes that are made at David Muir's expense, are premised upon. None of the assumptions are actually true. That's why if some of the stuff that people were mocking David Muir about or making fun of him about, if they said that to him, they got to see him firsthand, they said some of the things that I was reading, people were making fun of him about, he actually wouldn't be able to comprehend what they were even talking about. He would be so confused. He would see them the way we see Rachel Maddow viewers, because the jokes people were trying to make at his expense depend on the assumptions that those people presumed were true, that the joke doesn't make any sense if those presumptions aren't real. And Muir holds none of those assumptions. So he doesn't get anything that people would be saying. He would just be like, what are you talking about? None of that is actually how this works. I've seen this before with some other things. What was it? I can't remember this. It was somewhere near San Diego, the terrorist shootings, like 2017 or something like that. And I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with cracking into a iPhone, and one of the terrorists, maybe both of them, were killed during the pursuit. And I knew somebody who declared that they had solved the false flag, which I didn't disagree with the outcome, okay? I just believed that the evidence that was being put forth as the main clincher was the last thing, was not at all a clincher. In fact, by putting it forth, saying this is how I know that this is true, it was going to turn off a substantial portion of the audience from ever believing anything they said again. It was a credibility destroyer. And I brought this up not to be like I'm a jerk, but I'm like, look, I looked up the manual, because the idea was the reason that this is a false flag is because the suspect was found dead on the sidewalk with his hands handcuffed behind his back. That's it. The cops didn't want him to talk. So they handcuffed him, they took him to the cop car, and then they executed him. False flag. If you stop right there. If you say, okay, are there other explanations where this could be true that we haven't considered because of our lack of knowledge of how policing works? And so what I did is I found the manual of the sand something. You guys probably got it in there. I found the manual for it. And I looked at the training because what I suspected was this. I suspected that regardless of the condition of a suspect, even if they're dead or their body's cut in half, that policemen are trained to handcuff them. That was my working theory. And I wanted to know what the training was. And it was exactly that. And then I contacted somebody I know who used to work in the police, who actually got out of policing because he was exposing scandals in Gwinnett County, Georgia. I'm going to have him on the show. He's like a great guy to talk to. You guys will love him. But I asked him, I was like, so how does it work when they're chasing suspects? What if their brains are blown out? What do you do? He says, you put their hands behind their back and you handcuff them because policemen are not medical examiners. They do not declare whether or not somebody's alive or dead. Their job is to pursue and capture. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense. That makes absolute perfect sense. And that is an explanation that makes more sense to me than false flag, proof, because the guy's hands were... No, I'm like, there's actually a very plausible explanation that anybody who works in policing or ever has knows that will never list it again. And again, this shit's hard, you know? Like, we're all fucking wrong about shit. Like, they make it, they pump us through it. They put those fucking screens coming out of our cats' vaginas and dogs' asses on every wall. Showers is shooting rays at you of Paramount Plus and Fubu or whatever the fuck it is. And like everything, here's $85. Can you please cut my Amazon Prime commercials down to just at least 90 seconds, okay? I paid $50, you only cut it down to 15 minutes. I can't even remember all the streaming services. Then you can't watch the bootleg sites. You can go to F movies, right? But then every 2 seconds during your movie, which somebody's filming on their iPhone, you got an animated porn bot with perfect Brian Stelter tits popping up, and you're trying not to click on it. Because if you click on it, your computer's going to crash, but it moves. So it'll put an X, and you try to click out of it, and it'll just move the animated Stelter tit bot, and you'll hit the nipple, and you got to get a new computer. This is why I am moving to a forest with a cabin, and I'm just going to be in the woods. Back to the subject at hand. All right. So the wooden, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They called it a wooden clamp. It's a clothespin. Well, it's a clothespin. The fact that they called it a wooden clamp it makes me think they're disingenuous. And I'm actually going to tell you towards the end of this, if we ever get there, what literally the dumbest take on anything that I've ever seen in my life. It's almost impressive how stupid the response to this story is. That thousands of people they just liked. They liked it. Getting back to this stupid story. Let's see if I can show that to you guys so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Is that still on screen? Use that stupid screen. There it is, yeah. Let me look at him. So this is funny to me. Just looking at this right here, so you see, I wish I could make this a little bigger. What the heck? Oh, won't let me make that picture of him bigger. But so you see this picture of Brian Muir in this yellow jacket. Just looking at that jacket right there, I don't need to see that there's a clothespin on the back of it. I don't need to see that. I know there's a clothespin on the back of it. Either that or it's an extra, extra small. because it looks from this vantage point like he is Rob Lowe in that scene from Tommy Boy where he's talking to Tommy Boy's girlfriend and he's got his back leaned up against the mail chute, the pneumatic mail chute, and it's pulling his shirt tight before it just rips it off and sucks it up. It looks like he's about 2 seconds away from that thing being ripped up into the mail chute. It's very obvious that something's pulling that back. Now, that doesn't mean anything other than you didn't need to see the actual. Here's the thing. I love that people did this. This is so dumb. So you see this right here? I scroll down and you see the actual, the wooden clamp. You see it, okay? Because he turned around and it was exposed. The funniest part about this to me is all of the pictures that have been shared on X that all zoom in to this photo, and people have they've gone to their editor and they've circled the clothespin with a red circle. Proof, circle. I'm like, what is this proof of? You don't even know what you're proving. It's all premised on this idea that David Muir and ABC News were trying to conceal this. It's just presumed that this is something they were trying to hide, and that David Muir is so stupid, he's so dumb, that this thing that he knew would cause him, it would cause him this embarrassing, like it's like he lost his toupee in the middle of a crowd, or he's a midget who got caught putting lifts in his shoes the way that people are talking about it. We got him. We got this motherfucker right here. Red circle. There it is. There's nothing to get. There's nothing to get. It's a total misunderstanding of how television production works. There are wooden clamps, or as they're called in the TV and film industry, C-47s, literally used on every television set all across the country every single day. Every single day. It's the most regularly and frequently used wardrobe trick or quick fix that exists in film and TV. And this idea, it seems what it says. Like the article it's so short what they say, but it says ABC News anchor David Muir is being mocked on social media as pathetic and narcissistic for using clamps to cinch his flame retardant jacket while broadcasting from the scene of a deadly Los Angeles wildfire. Muir was surveying the damage in LA for ABC News, doing a stand-up piece from the street in the Palisades when a fashion faux pas was exposed. That sentence right there tells me that, again, this is a stupid person, not stupid, this is a person who lacks any knowledge and did no research, or this is somebody simply engaging in what they know is bullshit bait. Faux pas was exposed. For something to be exposed presumes that something was intended to be concealed. There was no intention to conceal this. A faux pas is dependent on the idea that the thing was to be concealed and they messed up and, oh no, this embarrassing situation. So you're embarrassed because the thing you were trying to hide got this exposure. All of that is bullshit. None of that is a reality here. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody is embarrassed ever on a TV set because they have a wooden clamp pinning their shirt back, or in some cases, pulling a pair of pants a certain way, or evening out. They are used for so many reasons. A wardrobe person on a movie set is not just working behind the scenes. And I got to tell you, wardrobe people, the first time that you, I say get to, because whenever, one of my favorite things when I get cast and stuff is you get free clothes often, and the free clothes are chosen by the head of the wardrobe department, whose job it is to make you look like the character in a way that, when on camera, conveys what the director wants to convey with that character. So, especially if it's a cool character, they can make you look amazing. They can do things that you never imagined. You have no idea that you could look so badass until 30 minutes with a wardrobe person. You're like, holy shit. How did you? Yeah, they're like, you can have the clothes. Here's how you do the hair. It's a transformation. It's unbelievable how talented they are. And what happens is somebody like David Muir, and this is what I'm talking about, where you have to see this just like you're watching 24. This is not honest, tell you how it is news. This is what they always do. They go to the scene, they go very far away from this fire, and they set up the camera shot. And David Muir gets out there. Probably the first few setups, because they'll do a couple rehearsals where they have him out there on camera, because they have not only the director, they have the wardrobe person looking at the camera and then looking at Muir, looking at the camera, looking at Muir, and the director's going, "Can I get some of this and some of, do you have any of the?" And the wardrobe person saying, "Okay, I think I can make that happen." And I think they probably got in there, and Muir was wearing like a T-shirt, and he's looking at this background here, and because that's what I would do. If I just saw a guy in that black T-shirt he had underneath, I go, we need something. Look at the tree back there. It looks like something that we need him to feel like he's in the elements, like he's fighting nature, kind of like with the hurricanes. It needs to match that more because it's too casual otherwise. And I promise you, they're not even close to the fires. But you create this illusion that he is there and he's wearing this thing because of the actual fear, then that ups the ante in the minds of the audience. So that's what I would have done. That's what he said. All right, do you have anything that one of these jackets we can put on, make it look like he just, went and fought a fire across the street? And she's like, okay, I got this. Brought it out, put it on him, and he stood in front of the camera, and the director and the wardrobe person looked at it and they said, it looks a little big. It looks a little big, man. And the wardrobe person went over on the other side, and she's putting pins everywhere, and she's manipulating it with her hands, and the director's looking at the screen until the director finally goes, that's it right there, stop, bring her another pin, do you have enough pins? And she puts the pins exactly where the director told her to stop. That is one probable explanation for how this scenario played out, or another one, could be both. Sometimes pins are used to stop jackets like that when the wind is blowing hard are very noisy. Because your mic, I don't think he's got a handheld. And they're going to have multiple mics on them all the time. He's probably got a lavalier somewhere on him. And things that rub up against that can screw your audio. And if you got a big jacket whipping around in the wind, it's going to mess your audio up. So it could have also been to silence the jacket that was making too much racket. With another point being that this presumption stated in this headline here, it's just so that David Muir, that this is something that showcases David Muir's narcissism. Look at him. He's a narcissist. No, that's so far from the truth, because that take implies that this is something very specifically that David Muir and David Muir only does, and that, as they also imply, doesn't want anybody to find out about because he'd be embarrassed, so he's trying to prevent people from finding out, yet he's so stupid to say, oh shit, I forgot it was on there, to turn around and expose himself, as I said, to the delight of everybody who thought they were going to be dunking on him for the next day, which they did, and it ended up turning into this New York Post story. And they all look like it's just so far from reality. They could have been talking about how David Muir is a literal, one of the highest paid, best manipulating propagandist in America. That is what they should be exposing. Look at him. Look at that face. Look at him. I'm so trustworthy. Another thing about the narcissism claim, that also presumes that this was David Muir's choice, that he's the one that made this. He's not. the actors don't. Very, very rarely is an actor ever going to be the one having the input on that. It's going to be that, as I said, the wardrobe person, the director, who are looking back and forth between the screens. None of this shit they're claiming is true. Yet it was a slam dunk all over X by these accounts that I got to tell you, I try to give people the benefit of doubt. I really do. But main ones that I saw, I'm sure there was others, that spread this, that ended up infecting other people to spread it as well. I have a hard time believing that it wasn't absolutely 100% intentional and they knew exactly what they were doing. And here's why. Here are what some of the comments are that were spreading around on X. Let me get rid of that. See a Muir. It's just to think I'm sitting here defending David Muir and all this bullshit. I'm not defending it. It's I mean, it's funny. It is funny. It's retarded, but it's like people who know they can get so much engagement and so much traction on a post either are being intentionally manipulative for profit, or they actually just don't give a shit because they're so confident that people see them as an authority figure because of their large following and because because they have been willing to use the type of con artist tactics that most people aren't willing to use because of their conscience. And that has enabled them to pressure and force their way into situations that most people will go, oh, okay, because most people are being nice and don't realize until a little bit later that this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't know if you guys saw my post about a DM getting deleted from the inside of my X account. That I downloaded my data. And I figured out, I talked to one of the people in it. And I figured out the origin of it. And I realized exactly when it started. And I realized that I was the one that started the group DM. That I know for a fact I never deleted. But it's gone from the inside of my account. And I'm about 99.9% sure how it went down. But I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything because honestly, there could be things I haven't thought of. However, if X Premium would ever get back to me on my query, then I think I would have my answer. But it dawned on me, this deletion, because the reason I went back to look at what I was looking at is because the more I learned, the more I realized that there were definitely, like I joked a lot about the Libertarian Convention. Oh, these are really cool guy, I love these guys. Fed, grifter, fed. Like by the second day, I was literally going up the escalator going, oh, there's that Fed. There's like, because it was just so over the top. In some people, the lack of authenticity, while others, pure authenticity, wonderful people who were being targeted by the, in my opinion, ones who are just trying to line their pockets a little bit or set people up to say things on social media that can be used against them. And this is a little bit of an extreme theory. That is if they're an undercover, covert FBI agent, which, you know, probably targets the Libertarian Convention all the time. Oh, I know it wasn't you. I know who I'm talking about. I know a handful. And again, I don't even care. Like, I think it's funny to, like, I'm honestly, I'm curious, like, I'm curious at the compartmentalization that some people are able to accomplish. I'm not good at that. That's probably why I should make a lot more money than I do. I mean, I do okay, but like, I just can't, I can't compartmentalize and fuck people. Like, it's just so like, some people see that as a weakness. Maybe it is. I don't know. So here's the stupidest tweet about this ever. This is the dumbest tweet. And when I say dumbest, I actually mean that as a compliment, because I think that I could sit around for weeks with a whole team of writers and not come up with a take on this story. This David Muir shocking revelation that only because news only gets attention if it's out of the ordinary. Nothing about what happened in that video was out of the ordinary. I can't say that enough. In fact, I didn't even connect that to the mainstream media point that I've been thinking about this through. One of the media's favorite things to do to Trump that is being mimicked here is they determined a while back that they were going to make it seem as though Trump is the scariest thing in the world, that he is violating all of the norms of the presidency, this and that. And so when you decide that that's the narrative, you can do one of two things as a propagandist. You can sit around and wait for the target, the subject, to do something so crazy that it fits this description that you intend to portray anyway, or you can just take control of it yourself. Read enough Edward Bernays. They don't sit around and wait. They control the narrative themselves. So the other option, and this is what they would do all the time with Trump, is instead of waiting for something crazy to happen, is they would just start reporting on things that Trump did that were perfectly normal, that were the types of behaviors that every single politician that came before him and that will come after him, maybe change afterwards, but for 100 years, and even politicians that were in Congress when he was there, they all behaved in the same way. They all did the same type of stuff that Trump did. But the media just took those things that Trump did and they started reporting on them as though they were the craziest shit. Trump puts the muffin in the oven. A president has never put the muffin in the oven. It could set off the nuclear. But they would take the most mundane, normal stuff, and they would insist to their audience that it is the scariest, abnormal behavior that a president has ever engaged in. And I used to look this up because I talked about it. I was trying to highlight this. I could find literally exact same types of statements and behavior and acts that congressmen and senators did at the exact same time that they were acting like Trump doing it was out of the ordinary. And I could find presidents and congressmen and senators doing the exact same stuff dating back 100 years. It was all literally the same standard of behavior that had always existed in Washington. But because it was fear him because he's so off the rails, they had to pick up normal behavior and portray it as abnormal. And that is what they did. And it worked on their audience because while all this normal behavior, the standard modus operandi was going on, before all this, the media never covered any of it. They never paid attention to it because things don't make news unless they're abnormal. So they had no reason to. And so this helped them do this with the Trump stuff because the public had never heard about everybody else doing the same thing that he used to do. You combine that with the general lack of understanding of how politics work in D.C. on the ground. Most people don't have any idea. They literally have no idea. That enabled the media to say, here's this absolutely normal shit, and here's why it's abnormal. Be very afraid. They're exploiting the ignorance of the audience to the context that they're speaking about. And that's exactly what happened with this story. Is the people who spread this message a lot. I know I'm harping on the story because it didn't bother me because of the story, just the tactics and what it just seems so disingenuous. People make mistakes, but shit seems like it's on purpose. It pisses me off. It was the same thing. It was an exploitation of the audience's lack of because of experience. The only reason I knew that it was bullshit is because I've worked on sets, tons of them. If you haven't, you would have no reason to know that. And exploiting this, combined with the subversion of the critical thought and questions through the let's get all fired up about our boys fucking slam dunking on those libs, those faggots, and then you end up being made to look a little bit, everybody plays a fool sometimes. I'll tell you this, though. I got $20 on a lot of these posts that the major influencers put on their site. They'll be deleted in about a month. All that will remain are the responses of the people that they influenced. They'll be gone. There's a lot of people with big accounts that have third-party apps that either they have set on a consistent schedule of eliminating past tweets to eliminate evidence is what it is. Evidence just like not that I had any particular evidence in mind, but like a documentation of a group messaging chain that I had a reason I was going back to look for. I'd say if there's somebody that you trust a lot, and all of these things can be true, actually. People could be engaging in this behavior, and they could have an explanation that I never considered that it might change my perspective on it, which is why I don't make any direct accusations at people, because I think people should always have the presumption of innocence and the right to explain what was going on in their mind, because I don't know. I don't know what's going on in anybody else's own private world or the reasons why they do what they do. And I don't think it's fair to pretend to know and then act on something that I'm pretending about. So I'm always open to like conversation about that. But I would just be very skeptical of major accounts that you happen to notice from time to time that maybe something you replied to, shared, or whatever, especially if it was a kind of a long argument amongst a bunch of people, if it is gone for some reason. It no longer, everybody else, nobody understands what the conversation is anymore because the triggering post has vanished right out of thin air. And finally, skepticism. Skepticism is something I think it's very important. Not black pill. Like somebody said the other day, they echoed the Reagan thing. Trust but verify. I guess it's the Reagan thing. I don't know. That is the incorrect standard. It's the very incorrect standard. The standard, in my opinion, is what I said earlier. To criticize harder those you trust the most. Because that's the only way you're going to protect yourselves from having, our confirmation bias exploited by those who are like most likely to do it. That's how we protect ourselves from wolves in sheep's clothing. And it's very, very uncomfortable. It's very, very uncomfortable to embrace the cognitive dissonance. But it's also like enjoying the pain. You do a hard workout, or maybe you're into some weird sex shit. You really enjoy the pain. Look at it that way. God, I'm so off the rails today. It's unbelievable. All right, here's the post that I thought was just very skillfully awful. People, by the way, that were talking about this thing, they were saying, "You're so stupid. What an idiot." One guy posted, these are very competing in how dumb these are. But one guy posted, where the fuck is that thing? He said that, hold on, make sure I get this quote right, because this one is, I post shit all the time without thinking. So, I don't, it happens. It's just like, Twitter is like our thoughts sometimes, and if we're sitting here criticizing all of our own thoughts, like trying to making sure we have the right punctuation and shit, and then, we're going to blow ourselves up. It's great. We're going to get a Cybertruck. We're going to drive that fucking Cybertruck to Las Vegas in front of the Trump Hotel, and after sending a letter to a psychological warfare operator who has credibility issues because he's faked emails in the past, after doing that, we're going to send a message to the American people that we need to take these UFOs seriously, because I would rather blow my brains out than look like David Grush. Like, that's what I think that might be where some people are coming on some of this. That's my thoughts on that story, by the way. Where the fuck is it, dude? Okay. One guy said, Yeah, this is great. One guy said, "Oh, the media lowers my faith in them again." After seeing that clothespin, he saw the clothespin, and his response was, "Well, there goes the media lowering my faith in them again." Like that, like he was almost there. I was trusting you again. I just bought a David Muir coffee mug club shirt, and like, you know, I bought one of his paintings, and then I saw that clothespin, and I lose all of my faith in them again. If that's what made you lose your faith, I think maybe just get out of your house and away from every piece of technology ever. Like, goddamn clothespin ruined my trust in humanity. Here's the one, and then I'm getting out of here. So this post said, I'm not going to show it, but this is a post that got 1,200 likes. No, not 1,200, excuse me. It got 30,000 impressions, 120 or so retweets, and 1.2 thousand likes. And it was a sharing of the video of David Muir. One of the videos where people like, holy shit, they zoom in on it, kind of like the red circle. Proof of what? Proof of literally nothing. Proof that the most common thing you've ever seen is going on in a setting where it always happens, is what it was. So it was that video with, I think the tweet was something like, bro, this can't be real. Bro, this can't be real. Shared with a video that shows David Muir having a clothespin on the back of his jacket while on a television production. Bro, this can't be real. In response to literally one of the most common occurrences and practices that happen on every single television set that's ever emerged for the past 100 years. This can't be this is the most obvious real thing on the planet. 30,000 impressions. 30,000. Bro, it's almost funny, actually. Bro, it's like walking to a Starbucks and seeing a barista with they, them pronouns going, bro, this can't be real. They're all they, thems with purple hair. Oh, bro, is that coffee? Bro, this coffee can't. That's literally what they do is coffee. But it's the norm, but doing the same thing the media does. What they did to Trump, and disingenuously, in my opinion, pretending to think that what is normal is abnormal and then projecting that out to the people that the propagator of, and there are many, I'm not talking about any one person in particular with this, but they're confident people will believe and accept their frame. I actually like dissecting it, so I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just kind of I'm just a little crazy sometimes, which that's not a surprise to any of you guys. All right, guys, I think that's going to be. I'm going to look at some comments here. Then I'm going to get out of here. I'll save all the other stuff for later. You know, because I was like, this is going to be a 30-minute show, and I got like 4 stories, and that'll be it. Here we are, an hour and 48 minutes later, and we've gotten through one story that we did. So very good job with the time management right there. We have been clown-pilled. We are crazy here, says Forrest Mommy. Is Penn State beating Notre Dame 3-0? That sounds like the halftime score of the Tech-Syracuse basketball game right there. 3-0. Georgia Tech is 0 for 17 from three-pointer with 21 turnovers. Yeah, they don't stand by their shilling. FOMO, I'm probably more innocent than you, but not as sweet. Who are you talking about? First shot? More innocent? I think innocence is going to be a... the way you think about how innocence is defined. You can be innocent about one thing, but freaking the sheets or whatever. Isn't that the Usher song? The song, innocent about something, but a freak in the sheets. The 7-Eleven rule: if it's positive 7, we'll share. It's negative 11, we'll share. Interesting. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for indulging me. I do appreciate it. I hope I didn't run anybody off. It's all fun. I mean, it's just like it doesn't make me mad about. So some people might say we need to censor, we need to do more restrictive measures about stuff like that on X. That's not at all what I would advocate. My perspective of it is it's like a challenge. It's like I'm gonna try and be sharper than some of the deceptive people that are out there, and I think it's a challenge that it can be fun for all of us. Honestly, yes, I agree with that. You're probably right about that, Sam. I certainly didn't intend to do the 2-hour show. I need to go back and freeze into a cryogenic state outside. Maybe I'll wake up in the year 2030. I don't think it'll stay cold that long, though. I hope you guys are safe. And again, if you guys are in California, I wish you my best. It's what an awful situation. We'll talk to you guys next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.